Hi there, I'm Vicki Parfenow from Aussie Stampers and Vicki Parfenow Studio. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am making faux cyanotype prints. Now these prints are normally made on photosensitive specialty paper, and leaves or artifacts are laid on top. It's exposed to sunlight and then you come back and you have prints that look somewhat like this. I don't have any of those papers. I don't have the equipment to do that, but I did want to give it a try and see if I could reproduce this style of print using stamps and ink. And this is what I've come up with. This is the two that I have finished, and I thought I might get onto a prototype for you and show you how I made it. So I cut down some watercolour card, and it's quite heavy watercolour paper. This is Reeves watercolour paper medium, and I've used my painter's tape, which is this low tack paint. You could use washi tape. If you had washi tape, that would work really well, but if you're using this, what I do is before I put it to my page, I take off some of the tack on my skin first so that it will be easier to remove and it won't tear the paper when it comes off. Just a quick tip for you there. Make sure you burnish all the inner corners because we're going to be working on this part of the print. I'm going to be using Blueprint Sketch Distress Oxide ink. This is the perfect color. It's by Ranger. The perfect color to give you this kind of effect. I'm going to bring in a sponge. A makeup sponge would be perfect for this. I've just cut a piece of sponge, and I'm going to have a piece of scratch paper as well right here, so that I'm not going to take my sponge directly to my paper, otherwise it's not going to blend very well at all. I'm going to start blending at the edges. I want the edges to be just a little bit darker than the center. See how I'm pounding off each time? I'm pouncing onto the pad and then pounding it onto the paper so that I don't get a large blot of ink. Now you can see how I'm building up layers there. It takes a little bit of effort to get the ink around the page where you want it to, but I'm paying extra attention to the edges because I just want a little bit of darker image towards the edge, and my stamping is going to go in the center. So for my stamps, I am using this stamp set called Vintage Leaves from Stampin' Up. The original one I showed you with the leaf was this larger leaf here. There we go. And now I'm going to use this oak leaf and this very small leaf up here, or the second smallest leaf, this one here. So I'm going to stamp those images now, but I want to remember that I want to put some stamping on the edge. For that stamp, I'm going to use this dictionary stamp, and it's actually all the words about thankfulness. Thankful, kindness, appreciation, thank you. I'm not sure where this stamp set comes from, but any script stamp would work really well for this. And I like that it's typewritten and it's quite old school. So what I'm going to do is ink that up now on one edge. Now I'm only going to get one go at this, so I want to make sure it's inked well, and I want it in about the same width as my tape is, so about that same width in from the edge. and keeping it as straight as I can. Giving it a good press because I'm not using an acrylic block with it. I'm just using my fingers to impress the image onto the watercolor paper. And you can see how that's worked out beautifully. Now for the stamping. I'm taking the ink pad to the stamp because that way I can see if it has a good impression. I'm making it quite juicy and well inked. And just checking if there are little bits of stamping anywhere. You can rub them off before you take it to the page. Tiny bit there. And I want to select a place where I can also put this smaller one. I think this one's going to be dropping in from the top. So I might press this one in this direction. And I only get one go at this, so I can't put it in a stamp positioner because my paper is too big, so it has to be hand pressed. And I just leave it there for a little minute too to sort of soak in. Get all that lovely inky juiciness onto the page. Gorgeous. And now for the smaller leaf. Exactly the same. Lots of ink. And if you tap in a very level fashion, you're not going to put ink onto the block, you'll just put it onto the stamp. This is why I like turning the stamps over whenever I can. I can look at it and say, wow, that's nicely inked. And I want this to come into the page about here so I can position that perfectly and commit. And I'm just going to give it a good press. Give it a moment to absorb into the watercolor paper. When you're stamping onto watercolor paper rather than smooth cardstock, it just needs a little bit of extra love, a bit of extra time, paper against ink. And we'll see how this one went. Perfect. So I'm very happy with that. That is my Faux Cyanotype print done. Now for the reveal. Just a tip when you're taking this tape off, if you have taken some of the tack off on your clothing or on your skin, you should be fine. But even so, I like to be very cautious. Take it off slowly. If it starts to tear, then stop and go from the other side. But you can see I'm holding it onto the paper itself. I'm not lifting it like this. That will give you a tear. I'm keeping it level. So only small parts at a time are being removed. There's a tiny bit of fibres have come off there, so you can see why it's important to take this slowly. If you have washi tape, it may come off a little easier. I prefer to use this artist's tape because I use it with my watercolor work, so I'm very familiar with its properties. Tends to want to tear at the edge of the paper, but that's something, it's invisible. I can't see where that's marred the paper in any way. And you'll notice for my cyanotypes I used leaves, and one of the prints was a flower, because these are botanical images that would go with this style of printing. If you had anything quite vintage, say for instance an old piece of machinery or even a blueprint itself, something like that, that would also lend itself to cyanotype printing. Well, in this case, faux cyanotypes. I hope one day to get an opportunity to make the real thing, but I would need a friend who has all the equipment, because not having a darkroom myself, I don't have a lot of photographic chemicals. I'm a digital photographer, so it would be interesting to find somebody who can make these using the old school methods. But I just love how this has turned out. I think it's really, really pretty. And I'm going to bring it in and show you the 3 prints together and see how they look. This one goes that way, so I have 3 versions of my cyanotype printing. I hope you enjoyed that project today. Give it a go, it's really fun. And the Ranger Ink in Distress Oxide Blueprint Sketch is perfect for this. It's also a lovely oxide ink, so it gives a really soft image. Thanks so much for joining me. You can follow me on Instagram at Vicki Parfenow Studio. I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye for now.